So it's a bit different, this. It's more on the language than the pedagogy, I think. We've got it, I'm sort of corpus linguist, so I've developed a number of corpora, which are, though I don't know how many of you are familiar with this concept, essentially corpora are collections of texts which are put together in electronic form, but unlike like an archive where you would go and look for specific text in order to find out the information content, the idea is that you put all these texts together and interrogate them using corpus linguistic techniques to find linguistic patterns. So they're there to analyse the language, and you want lots of them, you want lots of texts, because you're not interested in any one specific text, you're interested in commonalities, patterns that occur across lots of texts of a similar kind. So this particular corpus is still under development, as I'll show, and actually while I'm here, I want to thank everybody for being able to come, because I'm actually sort of scouting for collaborators to develop this corpus further. So, but I'll show you what we've got at the moment. We call it ELK, Engineering Lecture Corpus. And the reason why we decided to build it was because, as you all know, students and academics are moving around different cultural contexts. And we felt, why engineering? I mean, not any really particular reason why we chose engineering. And in fact, if we move forward with this, I think we might choose another discipline as well. But I had an earlier corpus, the base corpus, British Academic Spoken English, and that was across a lot of disciplines, lectures and seminars, recordings of lectures and seminars across a lot of disciplines in different universities. But I thought if we were going to start collecting lectures across different cultures, then we couldn't have lots of disciplines as well. Otherwise, there'd just be too many different points of comparison. So we thought we'd try for lots of different cultures, but just one discipline. And the idea is that cross-cultural corpus of spoken academic English, and we wanted to identify specific language functions in lectures. In other words, what is happening in lectures? What do lecturers actually do in their lectures? Are there differences from one culture to another? But also, are there some things that all lecturers do, regardless of their culture? In which case, what is the sort of essence of the lecture? So we've actually done this thing we call it pragmatic annotation. We think this might be the first of its kind, in that we collect the lectures, transcribe them, and then we identify things that are going on in the lectures that have a particular function. So identify and describe typical engineering lecture discourse features, compare English medium lecturing styles in different parts of the world, and explore the current role of English medium instruction in engineering. So the idea is, as far as possible, the same discipline, same level of study as far as possible, and all in English. So it's actually very often they're the same topics, the same lecture, essentially, in terms of information content, but delivered in different cultural contexts. So at the moment we've got 74 one-hour lectures, and they're in civil engineering, mechanical engineering, electrical engineering, and so on. This is what we've got at the moment. It's not, you know, we need more. We've got a few from Italy, and we haven't analysed yet from Japan. And I have a PhD student from Nigeria who's collected them, but she's gone and had a baby. This is what happens to all my PhD students who have babies. Keep asking them why. And this woman, we're the right age to have babies, just as we're the right age to have PhDs. So she's gone off for a while. So as you can see, it's UK, Malaysia and New Zealand is what I'm going to be talking about just now. And the file formats, we video the lectures, and then we transcribe them into plain text. And then we mark them up with something called TEI, I don't use text encoding initiative, it's kind of markup, XML markup. And then we annotate them for the pragmatic features. So these are the pragmatic features that we are marking up at the moment. And this was developed over quite a lot of discussion and a process. So we're looking at types of explaining, what we call housekeeping, which occurs in all lectures to some extent, the kind of thing where you say at the beginning, I want everybody to come back next Thursday because we're having a special event on, or have you all handed in your, or here are some handouts, but have you got, this book is in the library, that kind of administrative stuff. Humour, and you see the categories we've got here, storytelling, this is the one I'm going to talk about a bit more, and summarising. And summarising would be reviewing and previewing. So you're reviewing previous lectures, you're reviewing what you've said in this lecture, you're previewing future lectures, and you're previewing what you're going to say in this lecture. So 4 types of summarising. Interestingly, if you start looking at English medium lectures that are on the web, like TED lectures, for instance, a lot of people seem to like using TED, but they're nothing like the kind of lectures that go on in degree courses, because, for instance, there's no previewing and reviewing, and there's no housekeeping, and really the purpose of those kind of lectures, guest lectures, is quite different from lectures embedded within a degree programme, where the lecturer has a responsibility to carry the students forward throughout an entire course of study, make sure that they're understanding, they're taking notes, and that they're linking it to their reading and all the other things. Yeah. So it's quite a different thing. And I really get annoyed when people, for instance, for English for academic purposes courses, say, oh yeah, we're using lectures, we've taken them from the web, we're taking them from this textbook. They're nothing like the lectures that actually occur. And my motivation for starting to look at spoken academic discourse in this way was because actually very, very little was known about what Swales would call an occluded genre, which means that you can't, people just don't know what goes on in degree course lectures, because only the people who are actually involved in them experience them. They're not open to the public, they're not available outside. Of course, this is changing now with various corpora that are available. Okay, so just to show you, this is what it looks like in XML. This is how we mark it up, just to show you. And you can see here that this is marked up for a little bit of summary. You see, preview content of future lecture. Where if you want to imagine where this could actually occur, think about the truss wrapped of the roof structure. This is what will actually apply this in a few weeks' time. So that's, so it's actually previewing what they're going to talk about later. A little bit later on, there's a bit of humour at the bottom. So I am the body, the object. You two have the unique opportunity to be able to push me around, and we mark that as humour. So it's not a science. We have to decide. This is why a lot of corpus linguists don't like this kind of annotation, because it's interpretative. Some corpus linguists say you shouldn't mark up text because unless the evidence is that it's objective, but this is subjective markup. But it enables us to pull out certain features and examine them across lots of lectures and the different cultures. So let's have a look at storytelling. People tell stories a lot in engineering lectures, we've found. They probably tell them a lot in all kinds of lectures. And we were using the Martin's categorisation, I don't know if any of you know it, of different types of stories. We've got recounts, anecdote, exemplum, and narrative. So a recount is just a straight telling of a series of events. It's unproblematic to just this happened, then this happened, then this happened. Narrative is where is the sort of the more literary type of thing that you find in a literary story, where there's some kind of problem and it's resolved, so it has a kind of arc and a satisfactory ending. But there's also anecdotes, which are there simply sort of funny stories that you tell in order for people to say, oh gosh, gosh, wow, or oh dear, poor you, or something like that. Those are the kind of stories that we tell in conversation. And then there's the exemplar, which has a kind of moral, and the moral of this story is, and of course they're not moral really in engineering, so we've sort of modified that slightly so that it's adjusted, so that it's a scientific judgment. The reason I'm telling you this is everybody remember not to do that, or always do this. So there are different functions for stories, and the interesting thing is the same type of event could be recounted by different lecturers with a different sort of purpose. And I'm just going to show you one or two. Okay, now I have actually got, let's see if we can actually play this. This Coventry accent, so watch out for this.
I don't know who the speaker is.
We can't hear him. Oh well. I thought that might not happen. Never mind. It's at some other time. If you want, maybe you can hear it. So this is the story. Now, of course, I can't read on this. It's not as embarrassing as the one. I can't read it very well on this screen. It's not as embarrassing as the one I saw on YouTube, where some guy or guy, I presume it was a guy, drove his little Ford Fiesta into the harbour off a quayside. If I may, something.
So they then have to bring.
They may have to. Yes, another crane in to get the first crane out, the car out. Shall I? Say seriously, didn't make the same mistake twice. Have a look at it on YouTube, see if you can find a video. It's a hoot. And then the coda. So things should be in moment equilibrium. If they don't, nasty things start to happen. Right? So that's a kind of narrative arc. You can see how it's divided up in sort of discourse analysis terms into different sections. But here's a similar story told. Here we are. So you've got the evaluation. All stories are evaluations of events, but there's a problem, and the problem is resolved. Here's another one. Here's a Malaysian one. Can't play it. Very similar story. Crane accidents. This video showed the crane accidents. You notice the crane, actually it's the workers were doing some lifting. I think that there's a bit, okay, as what you can see here, start to lift and splash into the water. Okay, so because of overloading, that means the crane is not in equilibrium. That is why you have to know your free body diagram before you do anything. And we counted that as an exemplar. It's not got the same sort of narrative arc as the earlier one, but it's the same story, really. And then here's another one. This is a bit different. This is an anecdote from New Zealand. You can demonstrate this, in fact, if you put a lump of concrete into a microwave oven. Just take a little, it works better with actually grout. You don't do it with aggregate. Good strong mix and fully saturated, put it in the microwave, put it on full heat. You'll probably break the plate because it explodes. Certainly I did once, much to the disgust of the owner of the microwave at Leeds University. And we counted that as an anecdote. It's just a kind of bit of fun, really. And it has a sort of emotional response to it. So we've actually got a sort of a visualisation, because we've marked these up, we've got a sort of interactive visualisation piece of software that displays, we can have a look and see how these types of things like stories or housekeeping or summaries are distributed across lectures in time. So each of these lines represents a lecture, and horizontally it represents a time span, and we can see how these things are kind of distributed across lectures. And you can see that stories are very highly distributed across engineering lectures. They happen a lot in all. So there's horizontally there's 3 different nationalities there, slightly different colours, but they're all doing it. And UK seems to be particularly high in narrative, and the Malaysians seem to be particularly high in exemplums and recounts. We've put them in different colours there. So, just thoughts. We think that they're about constructing professional identity. The lecturer is often positions themselves as a kind of expert, so they're saying this is what it's like to be an engineer, and if there are other participants, they are often characterised as being inexperts, so it's us and them. So, you know, we in this group, we're the experts, and those other people out there doing really stupid things, but you know, we wouldn't do that, would we, because we're engineers. There's also a bit of self-mockery there to balance the fact that actually they're characterising themselves as, well, you know, as being all-knowing. And recounts are not personal, but narratives are often personal, and there's the one I showed you wasn't particularly, but very often it's a personal experience. You don't get that in the Malaysian lectures, because Malaysian lecturers go straight through from first degree to master's to PhD into the university as university lecturers. They don't have professional experience, whereas very often engineering lecturers in Britain have worked in industry, and they give their lectures, they're always telling stories about their life in industry. And so you get lots of exemplar instead in an MS. So that, you know, so this is the reason why you should do this. Okay, that's it.